Money Confessions.
Story 1. I convinced my wife to invest our savings in crypto. She thinks we're up 40%. I've been lying for 2 years. I didn't mean for it to go this far. It started with one lie, a small one, and now I wake up every day living inside it. I've lied to my wife for 2 years about our money. Not because I don't love her, but because I couldn't stand the look I'd see on her face if she knew the truth. It started in 2021. Crypto was everywhere. News headlines, TikToks, podcast bros calling it generational wealth. I was cautious at first. Bought a little ETH, then some Solana, caught a few rallies, made a few thousand in weeks. For the first time, I felt like I understood money. Not the boring save and invest advice our parents preached, but real leverage, big swings, high upside. I thought I'd crack something. My wife noticed. I'd be up late running charts, talking about order books over breakfast. She called me her little quant. Thought it was cute. When I showed her how I turned $5,000 into almost $19,000, she was floored. That night, over dinner, she said, maybe I should manage all our savings. We had just over $47,000 in cash between us. It wasn't retirement money, but it was our buffer. Our one day we'll buy a house money. Our maybe IVF fund. She said she trusted me. That if I really believed in this, she'd back me. I didn't hesitate. I moved everything into my Gemini account the next morning. For the first 3 months, it went well. I rotated out of ETH into some smaller alts, AVAX, Link, Luna. We doubled our account, on paper. Every Friday, I made her a little report, color-coded, easy graphs. I called it the ledger. She'd smile, lean over my shoulder, kiss my cheek, and say, "You're amazing." She started telling friends I was a genius, that we were set. The pressure? It felt good. Until Luna imploded. I had 35% of our portfolio in it. Staked. I remember the night it crashed. I was up until 4:30 a.m. watching the price go to literal cents. Refreshing Twitter, Discord, desperately hoping for a halt, a miracle, something. When I finally got in bed, she rolled over and mumbled, "Everything okay?" I whispered, "Yeah, just tired." Then stared at the ceiling for 2 hours, dry-mouthed and vibrating. The next morning, I opened the spreadsheet, typed in new numbers, faked it, said we were up 7% that week. From there, it just spiraled. I kept trying to win it back. Bought garbage coins, jumped into pump groups, tried options on FTX, even borrowed against what was left to chase bigger plays. Every time I lost more, I updated the ledger with a modest gain. I told her I was being conservative, that I was locking in profits, that we were ahead of 99% of investors. And she believed me, because she wanted to. I deleted every statement email before she saw it, turned off push notifications, made a mock portfolio in Excel so she wouldn't ask to log in. The real account? It's at $1,146, 47,000, down to 4 figures. And every Friday, she still kisses my cheek and asks, "How'd we do this week?" She's talking about buying a house now. We rent a 2-bedroom in a quiet suburb. She's been sending me Zillow links, bookmarking neighborhoods with good schools even though we haven't started trying yet. She's excited, hopeful. She keeps saying, "Let's time the market. Prices are finally coming down." I smile, nod, say I'll start pre-approval research. But I can't even get approved for a secured card right now. I know I need to tell her. I know every day I wait makes it worse. But how do you look someone in the eye and admit you gambled away everything they trusted you with? Not just the money, but the belief that you were safe, that you'd protect them. Some nights I rehearse it in my head. I lied. I screwed up. I was trying to fix it, but I made it worse. I'm sorry. Then I picture the fallout. The crying. The silence. her family finding out, my parents, friends who thought I was the smart one, and I freeze. I know this won't stay buried. Eventually, she'll want to pull money for a down payment, or taxes, or a medical bill, or anything. And when she does, the illusion will shatter. I think about confessing every day. Sometimes I even draft the words in a note on my phone, but I haven't sent it. Yet. I'm writing this here because I needed to say it out loud somewhere. Because if you're reading this and you're doing something similar, faking numbers, hiding balances, pretending it'll work out, please understand. The silence doesn't protect them. It only protects you. For now. But the bill always comes due. Story 2. My fiancé had a second phone hidden in the garage. I found out about the second phone entirely by accident on a Sunday afternoon that started with laundry and ended with the first real crack in the future I thought I was building. Our house was still half renovated. Floors unfinished in the hallway, cabinet doors off in the kitchen. Since we had been doing everything ourselves to save money before the wedding. Dean was in the backyard fixing a busted section of the fence while I had just pulled a load of laundry from the dryer. I knocked over the catch-all basket on the counter, the one where we threw spare keys, old receipts, screws we never put back, and something clattered across the tile and slid under the fridge. I knelt down with a broom to fish it out, expecting a penny or screw. Instead, I dragged out a small, scuffed phone. Not the iPhone I knew he used, but something older, cheaper. The kind you picked up at a drugstore. My heart paused, just long enough to notice it. I sat on the floor and stared at it. The screen was dark, no case, no lock screen. Just a worn-down button and a few smudges. I pressed the power, surprised that it was charged. That startled me more than I expected. The home screen lit up with a wallpaper of a beach I didn't recognize, and a list of recent messages, none of which were mine. All the names were listed only as initials, and a text at the top read, "Miss you already." I didn't move for a while. Just sat there with my knees to my chest, phone in hand, the dryer still humming behind me like some cruel soundtrack. Eventually I checked the contacts. Nothing made sense. Just letters, a few emojis, and one saved as L, with no pictures, no email account, no social media. Just texts. Lots of texts. Dean came in a few minutes later, wiping his hands on a rag, complaining about the fence post. I was still on the floor when he saw what I was holding. He stopped mid-sentence and asked where I found it. A little too fast. I said, "Under the fridge." He didn't sit down or move, just stood there with his eyes flicking from the phone to my face. He mumbled that it was old and he didn't use it anymore. I pointed out that it was charged. He opened his mouth, then closed it, saying he'd forgotten it was there. That it was nothing. I wanted to believe him. I really did. We were 6 months out from the wedding. Our RSVP cards were printed. Our deposit was down on a barn venue with Edison lights and antique chairs. But that phone felt radioactive in my hands. I stood up slowly and said, "Then show me." He didn't. He reached for it instead. I stepped back. And in that instant, I knew. That night, I didn't sleep. I took the phone apart and found a burner SIM card. I read the messages again and again, watching the tone change, playful to flirty to needy. One number kept coming up. The one saved as L, I called it once. It rang twice, then went to voicemail. A woman's voice, young and breathy. "Hey, you know what to do." The next day, I took off work and went to the phone store. Had them trace what they could. The number was registered in another town, just 2 hours away, under a name I didn't recognize. When I got home, Dean was in the garage like nothing had happened, sanding a piece of trim. I stood in the doorway and said, "I know about her." He didn't look up, just muttered, "It didn't mean anything." I asked why hide it? Why the second phone? He finally put the sander down and faced me. "Because I knew you wouldn't understand," he said. I laughed. a bitter, cracked sound that didn't feel like mine. "You're right," I told him. "I don't." We never fought. Not really. But that day was different. I cried and screamed and asked how long. He said 6 months, the exact time we'd been engaged. I asked if he loved her. He didn't answer. I asked if he loved me. He said, "I want to." That was worse. I cancelled the wedding, called every vendor, told my parents, returned the dress, packed up my things one slow weekend while he was at work, and left the keys on the counter beside the broken phone. He texted a few times, left a voicemail. I never responded. Instead, I moved in with a friend across town and started therapy. Because trusting someone that much, only to find out they kept a secret version of themselves in a drawer beside loose batteries and spare change, does something to your sense of reality. It's been 6 months now. The barn refunded half our deposit. My mum offered to take the dress and turn it into something else. I told her to give it away. I walk every evening now, rain or shine. I deleted our shared Pinterest board. I started reading again. Not because I was trying to heal, but because I had stopped for so long. Sometimes I still think about the woman on the other end of that line. What she knew, what she thought she had. But mostly, I think about the quiet relief that comes from learning the truth in time. Before the papers were signed, before the name was changed, before I became someone I didn't recognize just to make him comfortable with his own lies. Story 3. The ceiling leak that shattered my marriage and my finances. I want to start by saying, I didn't think I was naive. I'm college educated, financially independent, pretty skeptical by nature. But here I am, 4 years into a marriage that was never real to begin with. We met in 2017 at a wedding. He was everything I thought I wanted. Smart, funny, deeply respectful. Worked in consulting, traveled constantly, but always checked in. When we started dating, he told me upfront that he had a low libido due to a health condition. It felt like real, adult communication. I appreciated it. We got married in 2019. Small ceremony. My parents loved him. His family seemed grateful. I chalked it up to cultural differences. They were conservative, devout, traditional. His mom cried the whole day. The first year of marriage felt like a slow adjustment. We had affection, but no real intimacy. He blamed stress, work travel, stomach issues. I didn't push. I told myself I'd rather have trust and stability than fireworks. Or so I thought. Year 2, the travel got longer. More red eyes, more last-minute extensions. At home, he was kind, present, but distant. Our lives ran parallel. We didn't fight. There wasn't enough friction to start one. I convinced myself that was a good sign. Financially, I thought we were fine. We had a shared account for bills, kept most of our money separate. But I noticed he never seemed to save much. His income was solid, but the charges were odd. Hotel upgrades, gift cards, expensive restaurants in cities he never mentioned. I asked once. He brushed it off. Work reimbursements. And I believed him. 3 months ago, our bathroom ceiling started leaking. I went into the attic to see if I could find the source before calling someone. That's where I found it. A small box, taped behind a loose beam. Inside, an old iPhone. It powered on. No password. The texts hit like a gut punch. Thousands. Dating back to 2016. All to the same number. Flirty, intimate, deeply emotional. There were photos. Some explicit. But worse were the everyday texts. I miss sleeping beside you. He's out of town again. I could sneak away. Don't worry. No one knows. That night, I sat in bed beside him while he slept. I didn't say a word until morning. Then I showed him the phone. He didn't deny it. He didn't cry. He just said, "I never wanted to hurt you." Turns out, he'd been in a relationship with another man since before we met. They never really broke up. I was the compromise, the acceptable public face for his family, his church, his world. "I do love you," he said, "just not like that." The betrayal wasn't just romantic, it was existential. My whole identity, wife, partner, teammate, felt like a costume. Something handed to me for a role I didn't know I was playing. But the financial hit came next. I pulled our credit reports, bank statements, tax filings. That's when I saw it. He'd borrowed $28,000 from a joint HELOC we opened in early 2020. Said it was for house upgrades. It went to travel, to gifts, to someone else. He even listed me as a business partner on a fake consulting write-off to get a tax deduction. When I asked about it, he just stared. Said he'd make it right. I moved out a week later. No yelling, no drama, just silence. I'm renting a tiny apartment near work now. I joined a support group for women in deceptive marriages. Some were beards like me. Others were lied to in different ways. It helps. I closed the HELOC, froze my credit, hired an accountant to fix the filings. The legal advice cost me nearly $4,000. But I'd rather bleed now than drown later. People say betrayal is like a knife. But for me, it was glass, cracking quietly underfoot. You don't notice until you fall through. And the hardest part? I don't even hate him. I know he was trying to survive in a world that didn't make space for who he really was. But I'm allowed to mourn what I lost too. Next week, I'm legally changing my name back. It's a small thing, but it feels like taking back something I didn't realize I'd given away. If you're in a relationship that feels more like a performance than a partnership, listen to that. It took me 4 years, a ceiling leak, and a fraudulent HELOC to find the truth. You deserve better than that. Story 4. The man I lived with for 3 years used my identity and left me with the debt. I've always been good with money. Not flashy, not obsessive, just solid. Bills on autopay, no missed payments, credit score hovering comfortably in the high 700s for years. So when I got rejected for a basic travel rewards card, I figured it was a glitch. One of those clerical mix-ups that gets sorted out with a quick email. But then I saw the reason. High utilization, recent delinquency. I actually laughed at first. Thought maybe they mixed up my file with someone else's. But something inside me didn't settle. So I opened my credit monitoring app. And that's when the laugh stopped. My score had dropped. Not just a dip, it cratered. Down nearly 150 points. From calm, leafy green to that aggressive red you only see in horror movies and warning signs. And there it was. A personal loan. $12,000. Taken out 6 weeks earlier. Already flagged for late payments. From a lender I'd never heard of. In my full legal name. With my social security number. My birth date. Everything matched. Everything except the part where I never applied for it. My chest tightened. That kind of tight that makes you feel like you can't swallow. I checked the details. Application date, approval timestamp, payment account info. It wasn't a scammer from overseas. It was someone who knew me, knew my middle name, my old addresses, my financial habits. Someone with access to my laptop, my browser history, my tax returns. There was only one person that fit. The man I'd been living with for nearly 3 years. He knew all my passwords. We shared a Netflix login, a grocery list, a bed. He'd helped me submit our taxes. He joked once that I was too good at being an adult. Now I knew why. But I didn't confront him right away. I needed proof. I needed to be sure. So I spent the next 6 hours digging. Credit reports, email headers, e-signature records, IP logs. And there it was. His email address, tied directly to the loan application. The contact number on file, his burner phone, the browser used to submit it, my laptop. From our apartment. He didn't even try to hide it. That night, I cooked dinner like usual. sat across from him at the table. The same table where we once talked about maybe getting a dog. He smiled like nothing had changed. But everything had. The next morning, I woke up early, drove to my bank, opened a solo checking account, moved every last cent I had, cancelled the joint savings, closed off the emergency fund. By the time he got out of the shower, I had taken back control of everything with my name on it. And then I asked him, not screaming, not crying, just flat, "Did you use my name to take out a loan?" He didn't even blink. He just looked away and said, "I was going to pay it back before you noticed." Like that was supposed to make it better. Like the only real problem was that he got caught too soon. I asked him why. Why he didn't just ask me. He said, and I swear to God this is a quote, "Because I knew you'd say no." Like I was the problem. Like my refusal to bankroll whatever impulsive nonsense he was chasing made it okay to commit fraud. I felt my stomach flip. Not fear, not sadness, contempt. I looked at him and realized I didn't know who this man was. I told him he didn't just mess up. He committed a crime. And if he opened his mouth again, I might say something I couldn't take back. He said nothing. The next day, I packed everything I could carry, moved in with my sister. I filed a police report, contacted the lender, froze my credit, started calling the credit bureaus. It took months, affidavits, fraud disputes, waiting on hold, repeating my story to strangers who treated me like a cautionary tale. I missed work. I cried in parking lots. I paid out of pocket for an attorney just to figure out how badly he'd entangled me. He texted, of course, said it was a mistake, that he did it for us. Something about side hustles and pressure and big plans. I didn't reply. I forwarded the text to my lawyer. Then I blocked him and moved on. 8 months later, I'm living in a tiny apartment. The pipes are loud. The fridge leans slightly to the left. But the bills are in my name, and only my name. Every dollar I earn goes where I intend it to. My credit score? It's climbing. Slowly. Stubbornly. But every point is earned. Every point is mine. And I check it every week now. Not out of fear. Out of ownership. Because I've learned that trust isn't unconditional. It comes with terms. It should. Financial betrayal doesn't need to look like cheating to leave scars. Sometimes it just looks like a man who saw your stability as his safety net and cut through it like it wasn't holding anything at all. The ugliest part wasn't the loan, wasn't the lie. It was the ease. The way he did it like it was nothing. Like I was nothing. But I'm not. I'm rebuilding, I'm recovering, and the next time someone asks for my signature, they're gonna have to earn it the hard way. Story 5. He always paid the bills until we got evicted. One of the things I used to love most about being with him was how effortless it felt. We never sat down and made a spreadsheet or divided tasks in a formal way. Things just flowed. He handled the bills, I did the groceries, he unclogged the drains, I remembered birthdays. It was unspoken but balanced, and for 5 years that rhythm never wavered. We lived in a cozy, light-filled apartment with scuffed floorboards and mismatched mugs. The kind of place that feels like home because you built it together. There was a wall calendar by the fridge marked with movie nights and anniversary dinners. And in all that time, I never once thought to question who paid what. Why would I? We used to joke about it. He was the finance department. I was home operations. And honestly, I was grateful not to deal with rent due dates or utility bills, especially when work got hectic. I trusted him. It worked. Until the day it didn't. I came home one afternoon to find a thick envelope slipped under our door. I opened it without thinking. Figured it was an update about recycling or pest control. But as I unfolded the pages, my heart started racing. It was a 3-day notice to vacate, for non-payment of rent. And not just a single month. We were 2 months behind. I sat down hard on the floor and reread it twice. My chest went tight. My first thought wasn't panic. It was disbelief. Surely this was a mistake. He would have told me if something was wrong, right? I texted him. Can you call me when you have a sec? Something weird came from the building office. He didn't respond. For 2 hours. Longest 2 hours of my life. When he finally called, his voice was too normal. Like nothing was wrong. He said, "Yeah, I've been meaning to talk to you about that." And suddenly, the walls of our apartment felt too thin. Too fake. He told me he was handling it. That it was just a temporary glitch. That he was working something out with the landlord. So I asked the question that had been burning a hole in my throat. Did you pay the rent? He paused, just for a second, then said, "Not exactly." My stomach dropped like someone had cut the elevator cables. He started explaining. Something about a freelance contract that fell through, short gigs, late payments from clients. He said he was trying to catch up before I noticed. That he didn't tell me because I didn't want to stress you out. That line still makes my jaw clench. He wasn't trying to protect me. He just didn't want to look like he'd failed. He'd been gambling on timing, robbing Peter to pay Paul, while I was meal planning and thinking we were just being frugal. I was budgeting for pantry restocks, while our entire home was quietly slipping away. We had 3 days to vacate. No plan, no savings carved out for this. Because I didn't know we needed one. Those 72 hours were a blur. I packed what I could. He kept saying things like, "We'll figure it out. It's not that serious." And I kept saying, "It is." Louder each time. Eventually I grabbed a duffel and moved in with my cousin. She cleared out a corner of her spare room and blew up an air mattress. The ceiling fan rattled above me that first night like something was trying to shake loose. And I still didn't know the full story. Over the next week, it all unraveled. He'd also missed 2 electric bills, defaulted on a credit card he never told me he had, let our renter's insurance lapse because he forgot to renew it. Every revelation was a crack in a wall I thought was solid. Turns out I'd been painting the windows while the foundation was rotting out from under me. He texted me updates for a while, tried to play it cool, told me he'd landed a new gig, asked if I wanted to meet for coffee. But I never answered, because I didn't want coffee. I didn't want closure. I wanted space. From the lies, the excuses, and the quiet, casual way he dismantled our life without ever saying a word. I started over with nothing but my laptop, a few outfits, and the realization that someone can seem reliable, even generous, while silently steering both of you off a cliff. That was almost a year ago. Now I live in a small studio with creaky floors and no dishwasher, but the rent's in my name. The Wi-Fi too. The power bill, the insurance. I pay them all. On time. Every time. And honestly, it feels good. It feels like safety. Every confirmation email, every cleared auto pay, every utility statement reminds me that I'm in control. I'm not relying on someone who sees honesty as optional when things get hard. I used to think love meant dividing responsibilities, delegating, trusting your partner to carry what you didn't want to think about. But now I know that real love doesn't hide the hard stuff. Real partnership means sharing the weight, even when it's heavy. Especially when it's heavy. And if someone ever tells me again, "I didn't want to stress you out," I'll thank them for the warning, pick up my bag, and leave. Before the house starts burning, and they expect me to hold the hose for a fire they lit and never mentioned. Story 6. She cried when I confronted her, but it wasn't guilt. It was strategy. I never thought I'd be the guy who got emotionally and financially gutted by someone who seemed too sweet to lie. But here I am. I need to write this out because my hands won't stop shaking and my apartment is too quiet now that she's gone. We were together for almost 4 years, moved in at the 2-year mark. I thought it was love. I thought we were partners, but looking back, she treated me like an investor she didn't plan to pay back. She worked part-time at a floral shop, did watercolors on Etsy, and joked that I was the stable one. I liked being that. I had a good IT job, salary just over $92,000, no debt, and a stupid soft spot for anyone who called me reliable. I didn't mind covering more of the rent. At first, we split groceries 60-40, then it was 7-30. Then she stopped offering altogether. There was always some hiccup. Her mum's medical bill, a late Etsy payment, her car battery dying. Each excuse small enough to not feel worth a fight. She always cried just the right amount, never dramatic. Just enough to make me feel like an asshole for even asking. It started really falling apart last August. I noticed she was buying new clothes constantly. Trendy little hauls from sites like Aritzia, Free People, even a Coach bag she claimed was a knockoff from Poshmark. But her side income hadn't changed. If anything, her Etsy store had slowed. I made a joke once. Something dumb like, "Damn, my sugar baby has expensive taste," expecting her to laugh. She didn't. She got dead quiet, then told me it hurt that I saw her that way. That she was trying so hard to feel like an equal, and my comment made her feel less than. I apologized. Profusely. I even Venmo'd her $200 that night for fun money. I didn't realize then that that was the moment she flipped it. Weaponized the guilt. Like she had rehearsed it. By September, she had full access to my American Express. I had given her the number once to order takeout while I was stuck in a Zoom onboarding call, and I forgot to unlink it. Over the next 2 months, she used it 42 times. Clothes, Uber rides, DoorDash, Sephora. A weird $380 charge to something called Glow Treat Skin Studio. When I confronted her, I expected a denial, or at least some kind of fight. But she cried, broke down sobbing, said she was scared to tell me she'd lost her debit card and didn't want to make me feel used. Said she'd planned to pay me back in installments, but the shame got in the way. And just like that, I felt like the villain. Again. She started getting texts late at night around October. Her phone always faced down. Once, at 2:13 a.m., it buzzed so loud it woke me up. I reached over, half asleep, and saw a message preview. "He's asleep, right?" I don't even remember the name on the sender. I froze. She snatched the phone before I could say anything. Said it was her cousin from Chicago. Someone going through a breakup. I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. Because if I didn't, I'd have to admit the last 4 years were fake. So I gaslit myself. I really started unraveling the week before Thanksgiving. I went to pull my credit report because we were talking about buying a used Subaru in her name. Hers was falling apart. I wanted to co-sign. I had an 807 score. Or I did. It had dropped to 623. There were 2 new credit cards I didn't open. A PayPal credit line, and worst of all, a personal loan from a sketchy online bank. $12,000, taken out 5 months ago. Every listed address and phone number matched hers. I locked myself in the bathroom and threw up. Then I took screenshots. Every single one. When I confronted her, I didn't yell. I didn't even raise my voice. I sat her down and asked one question. Why is your phone number tied to a loan taken out in my name? She stared at me for a long time. Then the tears came. Again. But this time, I saw it. The calculation behind them. She reached for my hand and said she'd been so scared and so desperate when her mom's hospital bills piled up, and she didn't know where else to turn. Claimed she planned to tell me, but every month she hoped she could fix it first. Said she loved me too much to lose me over a mistake. It was the first time her crying didn't move me. It just made me cold. I contacted the bank the next day. Froze all accounts. Reported fraud. opened a police report which turned my stomach but felt necessary. I expected some pushback from her. Instead, she packed a bag and left while I was at work. Took her laptop, makeup bag, and the espresso machine, the one I bought her last Christmas. She left behind her watercolors. It's been 3 weeks since then. I'm slowly clawing my way back. I've disputed the loan and both cards. The bank investigator told me the handwriting on the signature didn't match mine. I've got 2 affidavits to submit, and I've frozen my credit. I've spoken to a lawyer. She hasn't contacted me, not once. But her Etsy store's still active, and she's been tagged in new Instagram posts, smiling, cocktails in hand, in someone's rooftop apartment that isn't mine. I replay our last months over and over, not the fights, the quiet moments, the way she stopped contributing to groceries but still asked for oat milk, if it's on sale. The way she used to set a plate out for me, even when I said I wasn't hungry. The soft apologies, the fake guilt, the way she always seemed so grateful. I think that's what hurts most. Not that she used me, that I wanted to be used, that I mistook control for closeness, guilt for intimacy, and silence for peace. I'm sharing this for anyone who thinks subtle gaslighting isn't real, that someone crying means they must feel bad, that love should be proven with financial trust. She cried when I confronted her. But it wasn't guilt, it was strategy. And I almost lost everything to it. Story 7. I framed my coworker to save my job. He'll land on his feet. I wouldn't have. I'm not proud of what I did. I don't even know if I regret it. Maybe I just regret how cleanly it worked. I'm a 34-year-old data analyst at a mid-sized logistics company. Until recently, I shared a small office with a guy named Marcus. And he's the reason I still have a job. Sort of. I'll tell you what happened. No moralizing, no excuses. Just the truth as it happened, and how I told myself it was okay. I started slipping about 9 months ago. The layoffs came in waves. First it was the interns, then the project managers, then some of the devs who thought they were untouchable. The vibe in the office turned from startup quirky to funeral parlor quiet real fast. They told us performance was going to factor into upcoming restructuring decisions. Translation: anyone whose numbers weren't spotless was screwed. And I was screwed. See, I'd been coasting. My dashboards were messy, my reports late. I was coming in tired, leaving early. Not because I was lazy, because I was drowning. My mum had a stroke in March, and suddenly I was her part-time nurse, chauffeur, and financial lifeline. Her Medicaid paperwork alone could have been a full-time job. But no one at work knew that. I didn't want to be the guy with problems. I just wanted to survive. Marcus was younger than me. Mid-20s, sharp, popular in that effortless way. Wore Uniqlo blazers like they were tailored. Said buddy a lot. I never hated him. I just noticed that no matter what, his work got praise. His numbers always looked tighter, his slides more polished. One Thursday in July, I accidentally opened the wrong file from our shared network folder. It was a dashboard Marcus had submitted, but there was a broken formula. A small one, but it overstated a key figure by 13%. Enough to skew a client projection. He must have fixed it later because the final version he sent was spotless. But for a brief moment, I saw a crack. And then I started watching. The first real opportunity came 2 weeks later. We'd both been assigned a rush job. Forecasting volume for a major supplier's new route. Marcus volunteered to present the findings, and I was relieved, until I realized I hadn't saved a backup of my raw data. When I asked Marcus for the merged dataset, he sent me a version that didn't match what I'd worked on. I flagged it. He brushed it off. Oh, probably the wrong link. I'll fix it. But that hiccup planted an idea. What if I could make that look intentional? It started small. I logged into the shared drive late at night and edited one of Marcus's draft spreadsheets. I added an extra 0 to a projection cell, and moved a header down one row so the pivot tables would break. Then I waited. That Monday, he submitted it. The error got flagged by our boss, then passed off as a simple oversight. Marcus apologized. Nobody thought much of it. But the seed was planted. 2 weeks later, I did it again. This time on a dashboard used for a board-facing slide deck. A $1.6 million estimate was inflated to $16 million. Again, Marcus caught it before the meeting, but he looked rattled. And that's when I realized I could do this carefully. Just enough to introduce doubt. Never enough to collapse anything, just enough to make him look sloppy. It felt surgical, precise, and justified. The day I made the full switch from sabotage to framing was October 17th. Our manager, Layla, asked me into her office and said flatly, "There are going to be cuts. I want you to be ready." I nodded like I understood, but my heart was sprinting. I went home that night and stared at my ceiling until 3 a.m. I called out sick the next day. Then I opened a new email account under Marcus's name. That Friday, I emailed one of our junior analysts pretending to be Marcus. I asked him to tweak a few numbers to soften the blow on Route 9's Q3 returns. I made it vague enough to be interpreted as a joke, but shady enough that it would raise eyebrows. Then I forwarded that email to Layla, anonymously. It took 2 days before she called Marcus in. By then, I had prepped my part. I said I'd noticed some inconsistencies in his files and wasn't sure if it was a bug or not. I sounded concerned, not accusatory. When Marcus came back from that meeting, his face was unreadable. He packed up at noon and didn't return the next day. By the end of the week, his name was gone from the directory. They didn't fire him outright. They mutually agreed to part ways. Classic corporate white glove exit. But I knew what it meant. He'd been the rising star, and now he was radioactive. I thought I'd feel relief. Instead, I felt nothing. Just space. Like I'd been holding my breath for months, and now there was just air. I kept my job, got moved to a new team, no raise, but the cuts stopped. And Layla said I was someone she could count on. And here's the messed up part. I can do the job. I've been better, cleaner, faster. My dashboards are tight now, my reports punctual. I just needed to survive the fire. 3 weeks ago, I saw Marcus at a coffee shop on 8th. He was with a woman, laughing, relaxed, holding a tote bag that said, "Data vibes only." He looked happy. He saw me. We made eye contact for a split second. No nod, no smile, just nothing. And that hit me harder than I expected. I tell myself this: Marcus is smart. He'll bounce back. He's probably already interviewing at better places. He had a safety net. I didn't. He'll land on his feet. I wouldn't have. But sometimes, like tonight, I wonder how close I got to becoming someone I don't recognize. And if I already crossed that line months ago, without meaning to. Or worse, meaning to. Story 8. I volunteered to help my church with finances. Then discovered where the donations were going. I joined the church when I was 19. I was at a point in my life where everything felt like it was sliding sideways. Family drama, college stress, relationships crumbling, and I needed something steady, something pure, something that made sense. And the church felt like that. It was small, warm, and full of people who made me feel seen. They remembered my birthday, invited me to dinners, genuinely seemed to care. For the first time, I had that kind of close-knit community I'd only seen in movies. It became more than a spiritual home. It became my home. It's where I met my best friend, where I learned to sing harmony, where I spent holidays when I couldn't afford to fly back to my parents, and eventually it's where I met Pastor Greg. He was steady, kind, always had a calm presence and a firm handshake. People trusted him. especially after his wife passed. He seemed to throw himself even deeper into the church, always available, always leading. So when he asked me years later if I'd help with the church financial records, I said yes without hesitation. Not because I'm a numbers person. I'm not. But because it felt like an honor, a responsibility. At first, it was simple stuff. Organizing receipts, logging donations, balancing the snack budget and making sure the lights stayed on. Pretty unremarkable. But then I noticed little things. ATM withdrawals with no attached receipts. Checks made out to vendors I couldn't find online. Vague expense memos labeled community outreach or benevolence. All approved with Greg's initials. I asked about them. Casually at first. He waved me off. Said some parishioners preferred to donate anonymously. Said some expenses were hard to document because they went through informal channels. I wanted to believe him. So I did. Until one specific check broke that spell. It was nearly $2,000, written to a company I didn't recognize. I Googled it. It led to a luxury landscaping service, 2 counties away. We didn't use landscaping services. Our grounds were mowed by volunteers. I asked again. This time more directly. Greg got irritated. Said I was reading too far into things, that not every dollar needed to be audited by someone with no pastoral training. I laughed it off, nervous, unsure if I was being corrected or warned. It was enough to make me go quiet. For a little while. Until the unraveling began. One afternoon, another volunteer found an old bank statement in a drawer. Not shredded, just stuffed between old hymn schedules. It showed large cash withdrawals, spread out across months, all categorized as benevolence. I recognized Greg's handwriting on the memo lines. We started comparing notes, emails, statements, old donation logs, and it became clear. Tens of thousands of dollars had been funneled through vague channels, vendors that didn't exist, guest speaker payments that never matched real events. It wasn't sloppy bookkeeping. It was a system, designed to look informal, to pass beneath notice. But it was theft. I confronted Greg again. Only this time, I wasn't alone. 2 other committee members were with me. I brought spreadsheets, check copies, itemized lists. He didn't deny it. First he went pale, then angry, then patronizing. Said we didn't understand how church finances worked. Said grace required flexibility. That if we kept pushing, we'd destroy the very community we claim to love. That line hit me harder than anything else. Because it was clear he wasn't afraid of being wrong. He was afraid of being seen. I reported it. First to the deacons, then to the board. Weeks passed. Nothing happened. But I started hearing whispers that I was causing trouble, that I was being divisive, that maybe I didn't understand the full picture. So I did the only thing left to do. I went to the IRS, quietly, anonymously. I gathered every document I could, scanned checks, highlighted memos, took screenshots of emails and spreadsheets, put it all in a packet. I mailed it with shaking hands and a note that read, "I'm not doing this out of malice. I just can't be part of this lie anymore." The investigation took months. Quiet. Awkward. While Greg kept preaching, smiling, shaking hands, while I sat in the back pew, pretending not to burn with anger every Sunday. Then one week, he didn't show up. A guest speaker filled in. No explanation. The next week, there was an announcement. Greg had resigned, citing personal reasons. No follow-up, no apology, just silence. No one said his name for weeks, like we could erase the betrayal by refusing to speak it aloud. I left the church quietly. No confrontation, no final prayer. I returned my keys, stopped showing up, moved on with the parts of my life that didn't feel tainted. But something in me hardened, not against faith, but against blind trust, against people who weaponize kindness to hide their indulgences, Now, every time someone says, "We're just trying to do good," I hear Greg's voice. I see those checks. I remember how it felt to be used. Because wolves don't always come in disguise. Sometimes they wear suits, stand beside you in prayer, shake your hand every Sunday while funneling hope into their own private kingdom. Story 9. My family still thinks I'm a financial genius. They don't know I used her credit score. I've been called the smart one in my family since I was 11. The kid who fixed the family computer with a YouTube tutorial. The teenager who invested in Apple when it was $96 a share. The adult who bought a townhouse in Austin before the boom. At every birthday dinner, my mom brags that I just has a head for money. My younger brother calls me Rain Man when I recite interest rates or refinancing tips. Even my dad, who's never said "I'm proud of you" out loud, sends friends to me for budgeting help. But none of them know the truth. None of them know that for the past 7 years, the only reason I've stayed ahead is because I used someone else's credit. And it wasn't just someone. It was my girlfriend's. And I don't even know if I loved her when I did it. Her name's Elise. We met through friends at a Halloween party. She came as Rosie the Riveter. I wore a half-assed lumberjack shirt and called it a costume. She made fun of me all night. I fell for her hard. She was smart, practical, worked in public health, and actually cared about people. The type who had a folder for every life admin task. Taxes, health insurance, travel points. She used to joke that dating her was like getting a life manager for free. She also had something I didn't. A 794 credit score, 0 debt, and a long, clean history of paid-off cards. I found that out by accident. Or so I told myself. We'd been dating maybe 6 months when she offered to help me refinance my old Toyota. I was drowning in a 12.4% APR. She walked me through how to check my FICO score online, and I joked that hers was probably perfect. It was. She didn't brag, just smiled and said her dad taught her young. And I remember vividly thinking, if we stay together, that's ours. It started small. She offered to add me as an authorized user on one of her cards to help build your score a little. Said she'd done the same for her younger cousin. I said no at first. She insisted. I gave in. Then I used the card more than I should have. She paid it off. Then I asked if she'd co-sign on a new Chase Sapphire because I wanted to book flights on points. I told her it was just a formality, I'd handle the balance. She agreed. I told myself I'd close the card after the trip. I didn't. By year 3, we'd moved in together. We split rent fairly. I paid utilities, she handled groceries. It felt even. But what she didn't know was that I'd taken out a second card, in her name, using information I already had. Her SSN from an old shared tax return, her mother's maiden name from a casual conversation, her address from our lease. It was shockingly easy. Like a test I didn't study for, but somehow aced anyway. I paid it off every month. Used it only for business expenses. Mostly software, ads, and a short-lived e-commerce side hustle that never really turned a profit. But when I spoke at my cousin's wedding last summer and someone asked how I managed to build such good credit by 30, I just smiled and said, compounding and consistency. She never found out. Not directly. But she started asking more questions around the 4th year. Like why I kept getting new pre-approval letters addressed to her. Why her Experian alerts showed new activity when she hadn't applied for anything. I blamed spam. Said it was identity theft. Ran a check for her and claimed nothing was wrong. She believed me. Mostly. But she started pulling back after that. Slowly. Asking for more boundaries. Suggesting we reevaluate how we handle joint finances. And that scared me. Because the truth is, I was building a reputation. My family leaned on me. Friends came to me for help. My identity, the genius, the planner, the one who figured it out, was glued to this image I built on her foundation. If that cracked, I didn't just lose her. I lost everything I was pretending to be. I stopped using the card a year ago, closed it quietly, paid off the remaining balance from a bonus I got at work. I even checked her score. Still pristine. She never knew how close I'd come to wrecking it. But I kept the lie alive. Because admitting it now would undo all the trust I've been coasting on. She moved out 5 months ago. Said she loved me but didn't trust me. Couldn't explain it. Just felt off about where we were headed. I told her I understood. And then I cried in my car for 40 minutes because she was right. She felt the shadow even if she never saw the blade. We don't talk anymore, but her ghost is in every thank you text I get from my family, every spreadsheet I build for my uncle's mortgage, every "how'd you learn all this?" I deflect with a modest shrug. They think I'm brilliant. I just had a head start. Heron's story 10. My co-worker took credit for my work and got promoted. I never cared about being the loudest voice in the room. I wasn't the type who stayed late to be seen or volunteered to present just to get FaceTime. I took pride in clean, quiet things. A client brief that actually made sense, a spreadsheet so tight it could pass a compliance audit in its sleep, a slide deck that didn't make the execs glaze over. I told myself I didn't need praise, just respect. The kind that builds slowly like sediment. People realize over time that you're the one who never drops the ball. That belief held up pretty well, right up until I watched someone else take a bow for something I built from scratch. His name was Ethan. Just another mid-level analyst when he joined. Talked too loud in meetings. Hovered near the boss's office like a human LinkedIn notification. I didn't think much of him. I was busy doing the actual work. He started showing up in my projects under the guise of helping out. Offered to proof things, jump into decks, sit in on prep calls, and I let him. Because I didn't want to be that territorial jerk. Because I thought collaboration mattered more than credit. Because I didn't think someone like him would take credit. But then it started. He'd forward deliverables without CCing me. Answer client questions with insights pulled directly from my notes. Reword my work and present it like it had come from his gut. At first I told myself he was just careless. Then I realized he wasn't. The tipping point was the quarterly strategy review. I had poured 3 weeks into that deck. Late nights, custom visuals, data slices no one else would have thought to surface. Ethan offered to help tighten it up. I sent him a working draft. He asked to own the dry run. The morning of the presentation, I wasn't even invited to speak. I sat in the back of that conference room watching my work, my exact phrasing, visuals, recommendations, delivered like he'd pulled them from thin air. He mentioned me once. A quick shout out during the intro, like I was an intern who helped staple things. Our VP nodded along, impressed. I felt like my stomach had turned into a fist. But I said nothing. Because I knew how it would sound. Bitter, petty, jealous of someone else's success. Even if it was built on my back. After the meeting, I pulled Ethan aside. Asked why I wasn't looped in. Why he hadn't acknowledged my work properly. He smiled, and said, "Don't worry. Everyone knows you're the detail person." Like being the one who got it right meant I couldn't be the one to lead. A week later, he got promoted. All hands email, paragraphs of praise, leadership, innovation, cross-functional excellence. I read it at my desk, my face burning, chest tight. Reread it 3 times like maybe the words would change. They didn't. I left early that day, cried in the shower, screamed into a towel so I wouldn't freak out my neighbors. And then I did what I should have done months ago. I opened a new folder, I pulled every email thread, every file, every Slack message, every calendar invite, anything that had my name, my fingerprints, my timestamps. I built a neat, polite, devastating little dossier. Then I walked it to HR quietly. I handed it over and said one sentence: I just want credit for what I've done. They didn't say much, just nodded. Promised to review internally. I didn't expect fireworks. I just wanted one person to see it and go, oh. A month later, during the next review cycle, I got a meeting with leadership. They regretted the oversight, said my contributions had been noted, offered me a raise, not a promotion, not a title change, just money. Like that was supposed to plug the hole. I took it, then updated my resume that same night. I applied to jobs in cities I'd never lived in, interviewed quietly, smiled through Ethan's Slack messages like nothing had happened, ignored all of them. Not because I was bitter, because I was done shrinking myself to make room for people who mistook silence for permission. 2 months later, I accepted a senior role, across the country, my own team. On day one, I walked into that new office, shook hands with strangers, and made myself one promise. I will never let someone else take credit for my work again. Not quietly, not politely, not to keep the peace. Because sometimes, the most dangerous thieves don't sneak in. They walk in with company badges and charm. They shake your hand every morning while carving their name into your effort. And the only way to stop them is to stop pretending they deserve the benefit of the doubt.